today by Michaela Bojorquez Ford from the Craig School of Business. Michaela, thank you for being with us this morning, today.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
So I didn't give your title because I believe you wear several different hats over in the Craig School. So can you just start by telling us what roles you play and all the things that you do over there?
Sure. So I am the director of student experiences and also I am faculty at the Craig School. I'm a faculty lecturer, and the majority of my role is to run our internship program. So we enroll close to 300 students every academic year in business oriented internships. And that takes up most of my time. But at the other areas that I focus on is student leadership, student engagement, employer relations, career development, and in the last probably 4 years, I've started to teach our first year experience class, which is Intro to the Craig School. That class is focused on not necessarily introducing business topics to students, but more how to be successful in our degree program. We outline the expectations we have for them, not just going to class, but networking, being a part of the student body and things like that. And we try and make sure they know exactly what we expect so we can get the best results at graduation.
So just a few things.
Just a few things.
So doing all that, you still made time to participate in the Discovery program this year. So why did you sign up, and what was that experience like for you?
So I have to admit, I've been silently lurking every time a Discovery, post came out about joining. I got to do that. I got to do that. I got to do that. And I guess I just kind of that day that it came out, I got a wild bug and said, okay, you know what? I'm tired of saying I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it. So I signed up, and my idea, the class that I was focusing on is the CSB 50 class, trying to get it to be a little bit more preparatory in that it's, targeted to freshmen. So I wanted to have a class they take their first semester or second semester that really engages them with technology, not just, writing a paper or, maybe submitting a few things on Canvas, but really kind of using some of the tools that are out there that hopefully, and I know some of our other faculty are using in the higher level classes. So it's not a learning curve, 2 years from now, but more of like, let's learn it when the stakes are low. And then, they can start branching out and understanding how important it is. Being in the business area, a lot of the technology that I was exposed to was created by, educators combining with business people. So I also think, kind of sparking their entrepreneurial ideas of maybe creating their own app or, just being a little bit more technologically savvy was going to be a good fit for that class. So I bit the bullet and jumped in. Probably should have thought a little bit more about how busy my schedule was going to be in the fall semester, but thanks to all the cohort and everybody, they were very supportive to make sure that I was somewhat staying, in and up to date with what was going on. It was a little challenging. And I think for me, the biggest challenge was not 100% being prepared to convert that class that I was talking about. So if I have a tip for someone else, thinking about joining, just be prepared to really jump in while you're doing the sessions to change that class. I had always planned on changing it this current summer that I'm in, and that kind of made it a little difficult to really, focus and make some major changes. So
let's talk about some of those changes you're hoping to make this summer. So yeah, what are you planning to implement, or what were you able to try out with students this spring even?
So I was able to implement one assignment that we have, we struggle with having so many different students coming from different backgrounds, different levels, as far as career development. Some, with our first generation population, things talking about skills gap and some other vocabulary that we use in the class is completely new to them, whereas other students, it might be something they've heard before. So one of the assignments that I changed, and I used just a simple Google Sheets idea that we were using in one of the first or second sessions of putting a topic and on the Google slide and giving everyone access to it and asking them to just give me one word of what you think this means, or a short bullet of what you think this means, so I could visually gauge where students were at. And that was one of the quick things that I did for this spring semester. Then we also have another assignment that I asked the students, we cover all the options in business. There's so many misconceptions that if you get a business degree, you can only be a CPA or an accountant. They forget about, HR and some other things. So in this class, we talk about all the different options, degree options you can do in business. And then I cover all of the not all of the careers, but a lot of, just trying to spark their interest in the different careers you could have. So the previous assignment that I was using, it was very one-sided, where I would talk and then they would just fill out a template or a worksheet. So I wanted to use some of the technology that I had been exposed to. So I broke the assignment up. Instead of just one template that they would turn in, I broke it up into 3 sections. The first section, I had them do a flip grid on where they felt they were going. So we did that very early in the spring semester. As far as options went, and then we introduced all the lecture topics of the options. And the second part of the assignment was one that I had to complete during the Winter Institute. And I created Google Slides. I think Google Slides is probably my favorite interactive, simple. Everyone can get access to it. You don't need to, necessarily download special software. Seems pretty easy to use, fits with both Mac and PC. So I created Google Slides where we identified an assessment that we use. I had the students input their information from the assessment, and then created blank slides and have them interact with the template slides that I had where they were, introducing their own information. Then I was able to combine everything into one class slide, and we shared it the next class period. Everyone, depending upon whose slide it was, they were talking about why they selected that option, what information they found. And it was very easy for me as a faculty member, rather than taking the submitted copies from Canvas and going through me reading them and then making slides. It was already done for me. So that was incredible bonus. But they also were able to kind of make their own presentation really quickly. So it worked out, and it made the assignment a little more interactive rather than them just turning something in and me grading it, which I think is really, really important in a lot of different areas. I noticed students just love feedback or some type of, interaction with their assignment. So it worked out really well.
And sometimes the simple, easy to use things are the best. And one of the things you talked about in one of the early posts in the class was getting too ambitious and spreading yourself too thin. So
Yes.
sometimes saying, we're just going to use the one that everybody knows how to use, and that way you don't have that extra layer of support and trying to navigate putting something new and all that in there. So, but still allowing that to be interactive for students.
Right. Yeah, ambition definitely, especially when sitting in some of the sessions and seeing what some of the other colleagues were using. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so great. I think I think it was the Winter Institute, when we had some previous members come in and talk.
Mhm.
I was one of the engineering faculty. He was talking about how Canvas had a setting where you could open up, I'm not exactly sure what the page was, but you could open up the pages for the students to contribute and use that. And I looked at him, I go, I can do that? He said, yeah, it's so easy, so much easier than having them write things down and then submit them. And that very next week I tried it and I was, oh, thank gosh, this is amazing. So
Hmm.
yeah, and it was just a simple setting in Canvas that I didn't realize was there. So
So one other thing that we talked that you mentioned in the class was we were talking about OER,
mhm.
and you were able to find an OpenStax textbook that you thought might be a good fit after talking to some publishers and seeing some not quite right materials. I think you said you found something that you would hope you could adapt and make more themed for Fresno State. Can you talk about what you found and
Sure.
hopes for that?
So one of the challenges we've had in this class is really more from a school perspective. So I forgot to mention earlier, I'm part of our Assurance of Learning Committee. And every 5 years, we have an accreditation that is knocking on our door this year. So in that accreditation, we go overboard on making sure we're measuring our student learning outcomes. And one of the questions that's come up in the last few years is, where are we introducing those student learning outcomes at the entry points? Rather it's a community, for transfer students, we know that's taken care of at the community college, but for a freshman, where are they getting the entry points for critical thinking, or where are they getting the entry points for technology? So because I teach that freshman orientation class, I've been charged with tracking and making sure we're at least getting that very basic knowledge of, I mean, we know we have a critical thinking GE area, we know, but we wanted to make sure that we had some type of representation in our business courses to introduce all of those. So as I was going through the assignment, I had already been previously talking to, some of the bigger publishers that are part of the campus, and they have some wonderful professional development, resources. But in trying to be, more cognizant of keeping the prices reduced for students to not have to buy a professional development book that seems a little bit hard for me to swallow, even though it's not, they're not that expensive. But I noticed that a lot of the publishers, you delivered their curriculum the way they wanted it, which is great if you have that type of class where you don't want any creative control and you just need to, put out a class, which is fine. So in going through the learning module on the OERs, not sure if it was someone, I think it was one of the videos we were watching, they said, you can grab things that you think are appropriate for your class, but you don't have to take the entire, book or modules or presentation. You can just grab pieces and then really direct or customize it for what you need it for. And so that got me thinking that, we just do things different here at Fresno State. I was just down visiting some people in Southern California, right around the corner from Cal State Fullerton. And I know they do things different than we do. They're, how they present, how they teach. It's not bad, it's not good, it's just different. So in looking through some of the resources that I was directed to through this class, I found an incredibly engaging free option that has modules that introduce our student learning outcomes. So all of our career readiness skills, and it was very well put together, but I didn't have to use everything. And that's my project for the summer. I'm just pulling the ones that we need to be specifically, tied to our accreditation, and they're pre-built. So they're, pretty well documented as far as their language and everything. They're open as far as accessibility. They follow all of, I don't have building something like that yourself it's a lot of work to make sure you're doing it the right way. So some of the open-ended resources or open available resources that we were directed to in this class just opened my eyes to why reinvent the wheel. Just take, the spokes that you want to make your own. And I think that's going to save me quite a bit of time and, make it a little easier to deliver a new curriculum for fall.
Is there anything that you're hearing as you're doing the coordinating internships and career development from the industry partners or maybe alumni that you're dealing with that are skills that students really need, and how we can incorporate those skills into the classroom, whether it's with technology or soft skills, as they call them, those sorts of things?
Soft skills, definitely, we're still struggling a little bit with communication,
Okay.
oral communication, and not from we're a lot of our feedback from our employers. It's not in interns, it's not the presentation skills. We find students can be pretty well trained to stand up and give a presentation. It's that unexpected conversation, answering the phones. I also oversee our honors scholarship program. I forgot to mention that too. And so when I like to call students when I know when they're selected to receive the scholarship, I now know I have to send an email to everybody saying, I'm going to be calling those that are getting the scholarship. Here's my phone number. Please answer it, because nobody wants to answer their phones any longer. So, just getting them used to, there's still practices, especially in the business area, that are needed by employers. So definitely oral communication, critical thinking has been very high on the list for a while. Not just following directions, but actually understanding the processes and how they're doing it, and then making suggestions and recommendations if something's not going right. We are getting very good positive marks on our students, especially in the internship program, on Excel skills. So we've made a big push over the last 5 years in the Craig School to immerse a lot of our upper division classes with at least some type of Excel assignment, because we were getting pretty low marks of, and I think our data analytics option has helped with that too. But yeah, just professional, making sure they understand writing a proper email, just, some simple things. As far as academics go, I think our students shine even across campus. Technology wise, we are seeing a few more employers ask for higher level data processing skills. So Python and R and Tableau. From a more student-centered, I would love to see something from the university that addresses phishing scams and career development. We get at least 2 students a year that apply for those jobs that, $2,500 a month to be a personal assistant to someone that doesn't live in the States. Let's open our eyes a little bit. So, something in the technology, protecting yourself more so than, maybe the phishing, but more like protecting your identity. I think we want them to be technologically savvy, but, protecting their finances, protecting their student data, I think is something maybe we don't address as much. So I try and address it in CSB 50, but I've had a lot of students that have had their, someone file for their taxes and get their refund, just, things like that they don't think of. So addressing technology in that way, I think would be, I think they're pretty good on the social media behavior, all that kind of stuff, but it's the back end. Don't go to Starbucks and start checking your bank account. Please don't do that.
Yeah, we sometimes get too far. We assume too many things of the basics. And so,
Right.
the having being able to have an impromptu conversation on the phone or in the hallway. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Or in the
but
bathroom.
yeah,
Like, I don't need to hear what you did last night
yeah.
in the bathroom. Yeah.
Okay, Michaela, any last words on other things you may have coming up, or things you want to try or implement as we wind down here?
Pear Deck and a couple of other apps that we were, exploring in the class. I definitely would like to kind of take a look at those this summer and see if I can implement them. But I'm going to take it slow and I'm going to make sure I get the core part of the class done and if I have time. So I think I've got a new appreciation for making sure work-life balance is going well. Adding this on. I mean, I'm glad I did it because I definitely know if I would have waited until it was the perfect time, it might not have been around. So I'm very glad I did it. But I just, for me, I wish I would have taken a little bit more time to make sure I was doing it at the right time of the year, and making sure that it aligned with, redoing that curriculum. That would have been, I think, a bigger help for me because I had felt guilty for not having it implemented in the spring semester. And I think I would have been a little bit more on board. One of the things I would like to say is outside of the classroom, I was able to help out with one of our events. We hosted a affordable housing summit for high school students and college students. And we had congressmen and some other city of Fresno representatives for affordable housing, and using some of the tools, the Google site that we had to use for our final portfolio, which the funny thing, I was more focused on getting the technology set up for the summit, and that helped me put together my portfolio using that first. And then, oh, okay, this is going to be, a lot easier than I thought. But what we were able to do is have an interactive breakout session using Google Sites. And I used simple Google Slides. Each group had their own Google slide deck. We had them all represented on one Google Site page. And rather than, students coming up to give their final thoughts on their group work, they were all just on a page. They clicked it open and everyone could see it. It was one of the best deliveries of technology in a presentation where we had 15 groups of high school and college students. I was impressed with how it turned out. So plus all of our data was collected in one spot. I didn't have to take slides from every team, and it really, really helped out. So had I not been in the discovery class and asked to do the Google site assignment for the portfolio, I never ever would have thought of using it in that way to put on the conference. So that in itself got me a nice letter of accommodation in my faculty file, from a couple of people outside of the university that were, participating in it. And, felt really good to be able to contribute in that way. But also, just being able to be exposed to it, I definitely wouldn't have been able to do that had I not been in discovery.
Well, that's a great note to end on. Michaela,
Yeah,
thank you so much for taking the time.
you're welcome. Thank you.
To learn more, visit our website, academics.fresnostate.edu/ideas, or contact us to share your story. Ideas@mail.fresnostate.edu.